Hello, this is Jim, Washboard Jim. Today, I've had a lot of people asking me about how I look at stocks first thing in the morning. Well, on TOS, I got a scan set up. I set the scan up between $1 to $10 above 3% with a volume over 300,000. So these stocks that pop right out of the gate are usually a lot of my pre-runners that I play all day long. And on this scan, you can see you can set it to the percentage highs, find out what's breaking out real fast. You can see what's at the bottom of the percentage lows. And also, I like to look at the volume highs. What's really popping, what's really breaking out in the morning. And you can put a mathematical order or however you want. But I always look at the highs. Then I have my little customs over here that gives me an alert of what's running and not. Also have the amount of shares. I can tell if it's a low float stock or if it how many shares are in the float. And usually with TOS, they're not as accurate as the Trade Ideas scanner is or as FinNez is. FinNez. So I always like to use a cross reference or even go to Wahoo Finance and look up the float on them. So I never really depend on the TOS, Think or Swim, on the amount of shares, but it does give me a gradual idea, and I usually subtract from it. But on Trade Ideas, if the ticker pops up on the scanner, I use it as a more accurate indicator. And many of the ones that were popping up on high volume was CLF, which is always on the scanner for some reason. And you got BBD, SAEX, Ego popped up on the scanner Friday. MTSL was on the scanner Friday. And, I can move on down. And then I always look at the highest percentage. We got Kerr, SAEX, Seed was popping up. It had a split. Now the shares are real low on it, the float is. So that's the only thing that's giving this thing any kind of mustard, the fact that it's a low floater. It has had some news recently. So I'm going to present to you what the scan looks like. And you do that, edit. So here's the scan itself. I like to set it to $1 to $10 with a volume over 300,000 with a percentage gain of 3% or above with an ascending triangle, making an ascending play. So once the scan's up, and I'm going to move this over here and pull up a chart. Now, first thing I do when I'm looking at a stock is I like to pull up the 1-year chart. CLF is the first one on the scanner. I noticed that it broke out of its resistance, yearly resistance right here, which it had tried to before, failed. Tried it right here, same one, failed, and tried it again here, it failed and pulled back under the 50-day SMA. And also on this chart, I have the 200-day SMA and also the 50-day SMA. And I like to put up my news. I like to have the level 2 on it, and I like to look at time in sales. And then if I'm really active in it, I'll put the active trader on there and still have my time in sales over here. So let's take them off right now. But I do like to have the news under here in case the news pops up, and I can go back and look at the past news. And it gives me an idea if the stock's kind of bullish or if it's momentum or however you want to say. And the way I draw my resistance lines is I'll take, like, not the wicks, but I'll go to the base of the candle. And right here we're looking at a previous high, and you see how it lined up right here on this one, and how it hit this one, and how it hit these wicks right here. So actually it's going to be a good hard resistance. then I noticed Friday that we broke out from that resistance and we never did touch back. So we created a new resistance right in here. For some reason it popped up pretty good, and I want to check the news and see what's going on here. Second quarter 2000 earnings transcript. So that looks like earnings came out. You can see it right here as they did. And must have had a real bad quarter last time because you got a negative, then you have a positive over here. Still yet the stocks sank. But this time it created a positive momentum and moved on up. Now for me to try to find my next resistance, and I'll put me a little trend line right here at 943, right here where the base of this candle is on a daily, and I'll put me in a resistance right here just to see what happens when I pull up the 3-year chart. So I'm going to pull up the 3-year chart, and I'm seeing from previous years how them resistance, how that candle base on that daily touched up to this resistance level right here, which it tried to break out before. So that's a positive view in my point. And then you got a little bit later, about 10 some days later, you come out and then you got, and this is on a weekly, so you've got a couple months later where it popped up above that 200 SMA. So, you know, a person could start drawing them trend lines and start looking for new resistance for it to break out. I've already got my pull out lines right here, my pullback lines, creating new support. So I'm looking at maybe one right in here where the base of that candle and the base of the top of that candle kind of rid. And I'm going to go ahead and put me a little trend line right in there. And I got another one right about right here from this candle base right here. And I'm going to put me another one right there. And then I have a long resistance right here at about 1186. I'll magnify this up, see how I matched up, if I matched up pretty good or not. And it looks like I did pretty well here. Now this one can be adjusted just a little bit, but I did this on this base of this candle right here, so that's where I want to go ahead and leave it, because that's where it more or less closed at 993, 996. So when I come in the morning, I've got a couple pullbacks. If it pulls back, and there's another one right here, I'm seeing these two candles, and I'm seeing this base right here on this candle. So we could put another support right there around 71 and how it lines up with these other candlesticks. So let me just put one right here just for the fun of it. You know, Bob Ross would say. So I'm going to be set up for CLF, how I think it could run, how I think it could pull back and hit support, or we could hit this 50-day. Now let's move this to a 1 year. Now I'll look at that way, see how that 50 days still coming up, and so we could touch back to right about this 686 or these support levels right in here. Somewhere in here would be a pullback support area. And if you wanted to fine tune it a little bit, you can take this candle wick, match it up with this candle wick, and you got you another support, which could probably be the second pullback support, because you'd have this one right here. You'd want to maybe get in, see if it holds well. If not, then it sinks on down, then maybe it'll stop right around in here on these different levels of support. So that's just one of the stocks that was on the watch list, and I'm going to pull up my watch list again, and I'm going to go to the volume highs. Cliff was one of them. BBD's another one. I want to check over here and see, we got a conference call on the 26th. Earnings come out on the 26th, and this is BBD. So let's look at BBD. Now see, I've had my trend lines on this already. It pulled back the day Thursday to that 50-day SMA and then bounced right back up off of it. So this thing's showing positive momentum. I'm going to set me a little support level right here, right where these two candles meet, right there on that one. And I'm going to come up right in here where these candles are to try to fill the gap. And I see how it touched up right there once. So I'm going to go ahead and draw me a little support level right there, about 798. Then I'm going to fill the gap up here where that candle touches right there, and I'll magnify this up just a little bit. You see where that candle wick touches right there, and that base of that candle touch right there, so that's going to be another little support system or resistance level. And you notice right at the end of the day, that's where it stopped at, right there at the gap. So I would kind of in my head think this would pull back to a support level of around 772 and continue and not break below this. That would show a sign of weakness. If not, it could touch back down here to the 50-day SMA and bounce on up. This is BBD, so this will also be on my watch list for Monday. Now let's go with SAEX. We were calling this in the room Friday. Called the pullback on it. I did not play it Friday, but it looked like a good play to me. We're going to magnify it up a little bit and see how these old red trend lines are from previous when I was playing the channel down in here. So these are, and I still play my extended trend lines. I mean, these probably go back 2 or 3 months ago, but still yet, you can see how the pattern didn't break that resistance on that, pulled back. Then here we had probably some good news come out on it that day or that week or however. This is the yearly daily chart that's been magnified. But I want to read the news. I want to see how if it's got money or if it's got new contracts or when's the last time it was diluted, or just kind of get a vision of what's going on. So I expect SAEX to pull back a little bit, but also we had a great gap up Friday, but it did close at a low at 203 at the bottom of that candle, which is a sign of weakness. So I expect it to come back down some more, and I'll keep SAEX on watch for next week. Another one that was on that scan was GGB. This is one that I played before. I can tell with my red lines. Now I could extend these on out, and if I do, this is what we're going to see. We're going to see it almost skimming up next to that 200 SMA, which is right here, right around 416, 413 maybe, somewhere in that vicinity. So, and we also bounced up from the 50 SMA right down here on the bottom up to here, and this is GGB. Showing a little sign of weakness on this candle because we're kind of below, but also we're showing a gap up. And we had a doji right here, and with that doji it sold off and went back down under the 50-day SMA. So I'm going to keep this one on watch too. It's not really going to be one that I want to study hard, but it's definitely going to be that I'm not really going to have on my watch list, you know. Turn down my phone so that thing won't go off anymore. And Ego, we were talking about Ego Friday. It had a breakout. I want to bring this on down. We've got the 1 year daily chart. I always like to pull up the 1 year. It gives me a clue of what's happening here. You know, at one time, the week year high was at 253. Sold off, gained its momentum back, and then on this, must have had some bad earnings or bad news or something was going on, and it dipped on down, corrected, and started running up with that 50-day SMA all year long. Well, Friday we broke out from that 50-day, and we ended up at 114. I wouldn't expect much out of this stock, but we could run up to fill the gap on the 200, which would be right around 120 something, and pull back down to that 50-day SMA, and it could have us maybe a play next week on Ego. If I get in on the pullback and the volume still shows up on my tape, if it's, you know, green or red, or be watching the level 2 and also be watching the news. Earnings ought to be coming out pretty soon on ego. So these are just a few ways that, and I'll turn this, and I'll also use the same chart, and I've got different strategies. I'm always trying to study a new strategy, but I can bring this on the daily, and I noticed that the 50-day ran up, and so did the stock up to 150, and we closed at 115. So if we get a pullback, it could touch back to this 50-day SMA, or it could pull all the way back to the 200, which is on a daily 1 minute. And these are just a few stocks. I wanted to just show you the scanner that I use when I first get into the market after the bell rings. And I wanted to show you how I get to the scan, or how I set it up, which is a $1 to $10 over 300% in volume, with above 3% with an ascending triangle on it. And I'll kind of scan through these all day long, but a lot of these are the ones that I play every day, or they pop up on Trade Ideas, or they'll pop up on Equity Feed. And I want to wish everybody a great day. Keep it fresh, keep it simple, keep your watch list going, keep it clean. There's a link below that can set you up to where my stock Twits account is, and also there's a link to my Twitter account. And I want to wish everybody a great day, and let's have a great week next week. And thank you very much.